Hey everyone, today I've got a heartfelt story to share that's bound to move you. Let me introduce you to Orin Thorne, an electrician hailing from the serene hills of rural Appalachia. Orin faced a life-altering situation when he had a near-death experience that reshaped everything he understood about existence. On the other side, he encountered Christ and uncovered an astonishing truth. Our actions carry profound significance beyond what we often realize. The insights he gained are sure to challenge your perceptions of love, life, and fate. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on amazing stories like this one. Now get ready for a spiritual journey that will touch your heart and open your mind to new ideas. Let's get started. Orin here. Growing up in Cumberland Creek, a small town where everyone's familiar with one another, shaped who I am. This is the kind of place where news spreads faster than the wind, and the summer sun can feel relentless. I've always considered myself a straightforward guy, more action than talk. I've spent countless years as an electrician in this tight-knit community, and for many of us in Cumberland Creek, it's not just about making a living, it's a passion. We're the ones ensuring homes are bright and appliances are running, keeping the rhythm of life going. Before my experience, I was pretty grounded. Faith and spirituality seemed foreign to me. I relied on what I could see, touch, and fix with my own hands. My assurance lay in the principles of electricity, the reliability of circuits, and the pride that comes from a job well done. My mother, Hattie, was a different story. She possessed an unwavering faith and often encouraged me to listen to my inner self and trust in something greater than us. I respected her beliefs, but thought they stemmed from the worries of a concerned mother. I never imagined that a regular day at work could flip my whole perspective upside down. Yet, that's exactly what occurred one sweltering June afternoon. It marked the moment when my familiar life came crashing down, and paradoxically, it was the true beginning of my journey. What I'm about to recount might sound unbelievable. I understand that because, had someone shared a tale like mine before, I would have been skeptical too. I promise you, everything I'm about to share is genuine, at least as much as I can recall from my own experiences. It's the tale of an ordinary electrician named Orin Thorne from Cumberland Creek, Georgia, who found himself caught in an encounter that stretched far beyond our usual grasp of life and death. It was just another sweltering June afternoon in Cumberland Creek. The Georgia sun blazed down fiercely, making the air feel like it was thick and heavy, almost suffocating. Having just wrapped up fixing a generator at McKinley's Orchard, a job that had been necessary after a storm knocked it out the previous night, I was on my way back to town, exhausted but content. That's when I started to feel off. At first, I thought it was just the heat playing tricks on me, but soon enough, I realized it was something much more concerning. My vision began to blur, like I was peering through fogged-up glass. My heart raced so violently, I thought it might just break free from my chest. My hands, which are usually steady, trembled uncontrollably on the steering wheel. It felt as though my body was no longer under my command. I recalled my mother's voice echoing in my mind, "Orin, always listen to your body." And right then, my body was practically shouting that something was terribly wrong. With my hands shaking, I reached for my cell phone and dialed her number. "Mom," I managed to croak out, my voice weak. "I don't feel so good." There was no pause in her response. "Orin, sweetie, head straight to the Cumberland Regional Hospital. Don't stop, just go. I'll be there waiting for you." Those words might have been the difference between life and death for me. If I had chosen to go home and wait, who knows? I might not be around to tell this story today. The drive to the hospital felt like a daze, and I honestly can't recall how I navigated without crashing. When I finally stumbled into the emergency room, I could hardly stand. I tried to make my way to the front desk, my vision worsening, every step feeling as if I were dragging a mountain on my shoulders. The last thing I remember was seeing Dr. Kavanaugh, someone familiar from past visits due to my clumsiness at work, rushing towards me. I heard his voice echoing in the distance. "Orin, what's happening?" I wanted to reply, to explain, but no words came out. And then, just like that, everything went black. That's when my real adventure began. a journey that would take me beyond the confines of life as we know it and challenge everything I had believed until that moment. It's hard to describe what I went through next. It's like trying to convey the concept of color to someone who has never seen before. But here's my attempt. When darkness took over, I assumed I had lost consciousness. Suddenly, though, I found myself floating above my own body, almost as if I were watching a scene unfold in a film where I was both the observer and the star. There I lay on the stretcher in the Cumberland Regional Hospital, my complexion ghostly and unmoving. Around me, medical staff acted with urgency, their voices a flurry of words that didn't quite register. I noticed Dr. Kavanaugh barking commands and a nurse getting the defibrillator ready. What struck me as the most bizarre part of it all, I felt remarkably calm. In fact, an overwhelming sense of serenity washed over me, as though all the burdens and concerns I had carried in life had vanished. I glanced at what I thought were my hands. They appeared almost transparent, like something from a dream. There was no heaviness, no pain, no fatigue, just an incredible sensation of liberation. As I glided down the corridor, I spotted my mother in the waiting room, hands clasped tightly as she prayed with intense focus. I longed to reassure her, to say everything was all right, that I had never felt this tranquil before. But she was completely unaware of my presence. That's when I experienced this strange, compelling sensation. It wasn't a sound or a voice, but a powerful attraction drawing me upward. As I looked toward the ceiling, I was astonished to find it had vanished. Instead, a vast cloud was forming overhead. This cloud was unlike any I'd ever seen. It radiated its own light, pulsing with a life of its own. Then something extraordinary happened. From the center of the cloud, a path started to unfold. It felt as though enormous, unseen hands were parting the cloud to reveal a brilliant road, shimmering and enticing. Without a moment's hesitation, I began to move toward it. The closer I got, the more profound the sense of peace enveloped me, as if each step I took lifted me higher above earthly ties. In that moment, I thought to myself, so this is the true essence of freedom. At the end of this luminous path, something caught my eye, a door. It didn't seem remarkable at first glance, just a plain wooden door, unvarnished and unadorned. In that moment, my entire perspective shifted, and the significance of what lay ahead felt monumental. That's when I noticed them. 4 women by the door, each dressed in flowing white gowns reminiscent of the Victorian era, accented with deep purple sashes. They radiated an almost blinding light, making it hard to discern their features. Yet deep inside, I sensed their presence was meant to guide and protect me. I found myself caught between the familiar world I had always known and a new, uncharted reality. I realized without question that whatever lay beyond that threshold would alter everything I understood about life, death, and existence. As I focused on the door and these ethereal figures, something remarkable started to unfold right before my eyes. It was as if an invisible artist was hurriedly crafting something from thin air. The creation began at the ground, gradually revealing itself. First came the worn jeans, then a plain white t-shirt. Arms formed next, bearing the signs of hard labor, leading to the final reveal, a man's face. He looked mature, etched with life's experiences, his curly white hair contrasting against his sun-kissed complexion. At first glance, he could easily be mistaken for a local farmer from Cumberland Creek, yet his eyes, oh, those eyes, spoke of ancient wisdom, something beyond my comprehension. It felt as though he could see straight into my soul, understanding every thought and action I had ever taken. What caught me off guard was the warmth in his gaze, brimming with love that was both profound and unconditional. It made me feel insignificant, yet incredibly treasured at the same time. Then he spoke. His voice was gentle but carried an enduring weight. "Ori, we love you." Those words struck me like a bolt from the blue, sending a jolt through my very being. In that fleeting moment, I knew precisely who he was. There was no need for introductions or explanations. This was Christ. He stepped closer, and before I could process it, he enveloped me in a hug that transcended an ordinary embrace. It felt as if I was wrapped in the very essence of love, compassion, and understanding. I was in a place of complete tranquility, feeling accepted and safe. Then, in an unforgettable moment, Orin pressed a gentle kiss on my cheek. It was such a simple act, so deeply human, yet it carried profound significance. This kiss opened something within me, allowing love from the universe to flow through my being. I realized that all the walls I had built, my doubts, practicality, and fears, began to fade away. For the first time, I felt a genuine connection to something vast, something that exceeded my understanding. In that instant, I grasped the essence of what my mother had always tried to convey. I understood why many seek faith and hold on to spirituality. It's not about rules or traditions. It's about forging a bond, that unconditional love that surpasses everything we know. As I was held warmly in Orin's embrace, I transformed from just Ori, the electrician from Cumberland Creek, into a part of a grand design, a tiny yet vital piece of a universal puzzle that I was only starting to comprehend. Immersed in that heavenly moment, I sensed Orin draw back slightly. Our eyes locked, and in his gaze I discovered a universe filled with kindness and understanding. Without uttering a single word, he extended his hand towards me. The second his fingers brushed my forehead, a mesmerizing film began to play before me. This wasn't just any typical story. It was the tale of my life, seen through a lens I had never contemplated. I witnessed myself as a baby, cradled in my mother's arms, her eyes radiant with hope and love. I relived those first wobbly steps, the joy of saying my first word, and the nervousness of starting school. Moments zipped by at lightning speed, yet I could perceive every little detail. I saw my growth, my lessons learned, the mistakes I made, and my achievements. What stunned me the most was that I wasn't only observing these moments, I was experiencing the weight of each one. I felt the hurt I caused when I teased a classmate about his looks as a child. Conversely, I was filled with warmth, remembering how I helped Mrs. McKinley fix her refrigerator without asking for anything in return, because I knew her struggles to make ends meet. Every action I took, every word I uttered, every thought I had, they all carried significance, creating ripples that reached far beyond my imagination. Connecting the dots of my life with those around me felt almost tangible, like invisible threads stretching in every direction. Then the biggest surprise hit me. Those moments I prided myself on, as true acts of kindness, were never truly mine. Each gesture, each courageous decision was fueled by Christ's love, guiding me gently along the way. It felt like a veil had been pushed aside. I had always viewed myself as a decent, honest guy, but in that moment I was stripped bare before an undeniable truth. I realized that my good deeds didn't originate from my own merit. Instead, they were mere echoes of a greater love that now enveloped me completely. Some might find such a realization heavy or even embarrassing, but for me, it was liberating. Rather than feeling small, I discovered a sense of belonging to something far grander. Each act of kindness and every good deed became a thread woven into a vast tapestry of compassion. Through Christ, I learned that life wasn't a race to collect points or prove oneself worthy. It was about becoming a vessel for unconditional love, letting it flow through us to make an impact on those around us. In that instant, I grasped the real essence of humility. It wasn't about belittling my capabilities or downplaying my worth. It was about recognizing the origin of goodness itself. I understood that we are all channels for something much bigger than just us. Then, just like that, the vision faded. I found myself once again in front of Christ, his hands resting gently on my forehead. His compassionate gaze reassured me that he understood everything I had gone through and the insights I had gained. I sat quietly, allowing this newfound clarity to sink in. It felt like every fiber of my being was being rewritten, every notion recalibrated. I was still Ori, the electrician from Cumberland Creek, but I also felt reborn in a way that was entirely fresh. Christ beamed at me with a smile that held the universe's wisdom. Without uttering a word, he waved his hand, and I felt an invisible force pulling me back. As darkness enveloped me one last time, I caught a glimpse of Christ's face, his eyes overflowing with love and promise. In the blink of an eye, I found myself back in reality. When I opened my eyes, it felt like surfacing after a deep dive. The hospital lights around me appeared strangely muted. The blurry haze started to lift, and everything around me felt oddly distant, like I was seeing it all through a foggy lens. As my focus sharpened, the first thing my eyes landed on was my mother, Hattie's face. Her eyes were puffy and red, a clear indication of her recent tears. But despite that, a warm smile broke through. She was gripping my hand tightly, almost as if she worried that I might slip away again if she loosened her hold. "Orin, my son," she murmured, her voice trembling with emotion. "You came back to us." I wanted so much to respond, to share tales of the incredible places I had been, to tell her about the profound love and truths I had encountered. Yet, the words wouldn't come. My throat felt parched, and nothing I could think of would adequately express what I had lived through. Just then, Dr. Kavanaugh wandered over, glancing at the monitors while firing off questions that I struggled to grasp. "You really gave us a scare, Orin," he said, a mix of relief and professional concern coloring his tone. "You had a major allergic reaction to your antibiotics. For a moment there, we thought we'd lost you." "Lost? No, I wasn't lost at all. For once, I felt found, truly, deeply found." In the days that followed my stay in Cumberland Regional Hospital, doctors kept a close eye on me. They ran tests, tweaked my medication, and monitored my recovery. But as they focused on my physical healing, my mind and spirit were somewhere else entirely. I replayed every moment of that experience over and over in my head, the warmth of Christ's embrace, the gentle kiss on my cheek, and the vivid life review I had undergone. Every detail was etched in my memory as sharply as a photograph. Hattie barely left my side. There were moments when she caught me staring at her, a look of recognition in my eyes that seemed foreign to her. "Orin," she asked one day, "what happened to you while you were, I simply smiled, holding her hand. "Mom," I replied softly, "I saw it. I really understood it. Everything you've ever told me about faith and trusting in something bigger than us, it all clicked." Tears brimmed in her eyes, and she tightened her grip around my hand. At that moment, we didn't need any more words. We shared an unspoken bond that reached far beyond verbal communication. As my body regained strength, determination bubbled up inside me. I realized that I couldn't just slide back into my old life as if nothing had changed. What I had gone through was far too significant to ignore. It felt like a calling, something that ignited a new sense of purpose within me. Finally, the day came when I was discharged from the hospital, ready to embrace what lay ahead. Leaving the hospital, I felt like more than just someone whose body had healed. I had undergone a profound transformation. The outside world appeared unchanged, yet my perspective shifted completely. I was eager to embark on this new journey, one influenced by the love and understanding I had gleaned through my experience. It was a journey focused on sharing that unconditional love which had deeply touched my heart. Returning home to Cumberland Creek felt strangely both the same and entirely different. As I strolled through familiar streets, I could sense the shift in how I perceived everything. The residents no longer seemed like mere faces in the crowd. Instead, each one radiated significance. In my mind, I began to see them as precious beings, each with their own unique narratives, struggles, and joys. This awareness sparked a question within me. How could I become a vessel for the same kind of love I had received? My work as an electrician transformed as well. What used to be just a job now held a deeper purpose. Every house I visited, every issue I addressed, became a chance to extend my service toward others, a way to reflect that divine love I had felt. I recall vividly one day not long after returning to work when I was summoned to McKinley's orchard to help with some wiring issues for Mrs. Hattie, an elderly widow living alone. In the past, my approach would have been to fix her problem quickly and be on my way. But on that particular day, something encouraged me to pause and genuinely observe her. I noticed the sadness in her eyes, the unvoiced battle of someone grieving the loss of a lifelong partner. After finishing the job, I chose to linger for a bit. We shared stories, exchanged laughter, and I opened up about my own experiences. Hours later, when I finally took my leave, I noticed tears glistening in Mrs. Hattie's eyes. "Thank you, Ori," she said softly, "not just for handling my electricity, but for brightening my day." In that moment, I felt that wave of unconditional love flow through me, reaching out to another person. It became crystal clear. My new journey wasn't about large-scale deeds or heroic displays. Instead, it was about those small acts of kindness, truly being present for someone in need. My bond with my mother evolved in parallel. Although we had always shared a close relationship, it deepened in ways I hadn't anticipated. We found ourselves lost in conversation for hours, delving into matters of faith, the essence of life, and the incredible love of God. Hattie gazed at me with an expression that mixed joy and disbelief, almost as if she were witnessing the son I was always meant to be. But let me tell you, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments when the powerful experiences I'd had began to fade, and the daily stresses of life loomed large, threatening to dull the bright light I had once felt. During those times, I would reflect on Christ's presence and the warmth of love that enveloped me, which steeled my resolve to keep moving forward. Little by little, my outlook on the world began to shift. I ceased to view life as just a series of random events. Instead, I recognized it as a complex web of connections and meaning. Each interaction, every chat, and even the simplest incident seemed to carry a message. I found myself pondering, what's the purpose of this? And how can I spread love in this situation? Although this new lens didn't provide all the answers, if anything, I had more questions than ever before. They were different kinds of questions. They stirred within me a deeper curiosity and a yearning to unravel the beautiful mystery of love and life that I had experienced. Before drifting off to sleep at night, I often revisited those extraordinary moments. Christ's warm embrace, the gentle kiss on my cheek, and the vivid visions of my life were imprinted in my mind, remaining as clear as ever despite the passage of time. Each time I dove back into those cherished memories, I emerged feeling invigorated and ready to embrace another day filled with love and intention. Life in Cumberland Creek carried on as it always did, but for me, Orin Thorne, everything had transformed. I still looked the same on the outside, yet inside, I was evolving into someone entirely new. This fresh version of myself was just starting to grasp what it truly meant to live fully, love without conditions, and reflect the divine light that had touched my spirit. One might assume that after such a significant and life-altering experience, I'd glide effortlessly through my days, wrapped in constant spiritual joy and untouched by the world's troubles. But as always, life had other plans. The initial months following my brush with death were rife with trials that challenged my renewed faith and perspective. Ironically, one of the greatest hurdles I faced emerged from the very religious community in Cumberland Creek that surrounded me. When I began to share my experiences, my encounter with Christ, the overwhelming sensation of unconditional love, and the realization that we're all meant to be vessels of that love, not everyone embraced it warmly. Pastor Thorne's expression was hard to read, tinged with a blend of doubt and concern. After one service, he pulled me aside, his tone shifting between caution and skepticism. "Ori," he said, "we must be wary of these visions. Not everything that appears divine actually is. Sometimes our minds can deceive us." His words stung more than I wanted to admit. Here I was, eager to convey how my life had been transformed, yet I felt the weight of his mistrust. It served as a tough reminder that not everyone shares the same perspective I gained. Then there were the hurdles I faced at work. I decided to change my approach, spending extra moments with clients and truly hearing their stories. While some welcomed the added attention, quite a few seemed annoyed. I could still hear Mr. Grigsby's voice cutting through one day, dripping with irritation. "Look, Ori, I just need you to fix my air conditioning. I'm not looking for a spiritual guide." Those situations left me questioning my methods. Was I misdirecting my energy? Was I unintentionally shoving my experiences onto others, causing them to withdraw instead of drawing closer? Inside, I was battling my own demons. Despite the profound moments I had lived through, I was still just a person, flawed and occasionally petty. There were days when frustration boiled over, and unkind words slipped out before I could stop them. I often found myself battling selfishness and impatience that overrode my desire to show love. In those bleak moments, I felt like I was failing. How could someone who had unleashed such depth of experience still fall for the same old pitfalls? Guilt and shame threatened to swallow me whole. Amidst one of those dark times, I had a heart-to-heart with my mom. We sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon as I poured out my struggles and frustrations. She listened with such patience, her gaze filled with empathy. When I finally paused, she grasped my hand gently and said, "Ori, you've undergone something incredible, but that doesn't mean you're without flaws. The love you've encountered doesn't expect you to be perfect. It embraces you just as you are, with all your imperfections." Her words washed over me like a soothing balm, reminding me of that unconditional love I had experienced, a love that wasn't tied to my ability to be flawless. As time went on, I started to see challenges in a new light. They weren't just roadblocks. Instead, they became essential parts of my journey. Each hardship, each instance of uncertainty or perceived failure offered a chance to cultivate love and compassion, not only towards others but also for myself. I discovered that genuine transformation didn't hinge on being flawless. Rather, it lay in my reactions to imperfections, mine and those I observed in others. It turned into a lesson in loving and forgiving, particularly during the tough times. With the passage of time, I gained some skills in facing obstacles. Learning from people like Pastor Bennett, along with others who questioned my experiences, helped me adopt a more patient approach. Rather than trying to impose my views on them, I chose to reflect the love I had felt, allowing my behaviors to convey my message. In my professional life, I found a rhythm that balanced understanding my clients' needs while respecting their personal space. Gradually, I became better at gauging when someone was up for a deeper discussion and when it was best to simply carry out my duties and step back. I've also come to accept my own flaws and shortcomings, seeing them not as failures, but as vital reminders of my humanity, as well as chances for personal development. Each time I faltered or acted out of self-interest, I recognized it as an invitation to reconnect with that profound love I experienced, to tap back into compassion and empathy. Then, about a year after that life-altering experience, clarity struck me while I was repairing the wiring at the church. I overheard Pastor Bennett speaking with a church member, reflecting on my journey. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I can't quite grasp the vision thing Ori talks about, but I can say he's different now. There's a serenity and kindness in him that I've never seen before. Whatever he went through, it's undeniably positive." Hearing his words flooded me with immense joy. Ultimately, I realized that whether or not people accepted my experiences didn't hold the key to my happiness. What truly mattered was how I chose to live my life, how I treated those around me, and how I embodied that love I had come to know. Even now, challenges linger in my life. There are still hard days, insecurities, and moments that put my patience and faith to the test. However, my perspective has shifted. Each difficulty has turned into an occasion to practice love, to grow, and to become even clearer in my understanding of what life has to offer. It's interesting how life changes in unexpected ways. For example, after what happened to me that June afternoon, my perspective shifted completely. I wasn't transformed into some sort of perfect individual, but rather a person who had caught a glimpse of something beautiful and divine. I felt this strong urge to infuse that light and love into my everyday interactions, taking it one step at a time. As the seasons passed and turned into years, I began to understand that the journey I had started was not a one-and-done deal. Instead, I found myself nurturing something inside me, like a seed sown into my very being that was now sprouting and blossoming. One of the more remarkable developments in my life was how my connection with the Cumberland Creek community had evolved. Gradually, the townspeople began to notice me differently. I was no longer just Ori the electrician. I had transformed into a confidant and source of comfort. I'll never forget a day when I was sent over to McKinley's orchard to help with some lighting issues. As I worked, I could sense that Mr. McKinley was preoccupied, almost anxious. In the past, I would have overlooked such a vibe, but this time I found myself asking if he was all right. What happened next surprised me. Mr. McKinley, usually quite stoic, opened up about his worries regarding his family's orchard. He expressed his fears about finances and losing a piece of his heritage. Instead of trying to solve his problems, I paused my work and lent him my ear. I didn't possess any miraculous solutions, but what I could do was share the peace I had found. By the time we finished talking, I noticed tears shimmering in his eyes. "You know, Ori," he said, "I thought you were a bit off after your hospital incident. But now I get it. You truly witnessed something extraordinary, didn't you?" Encounters like that have become increasingly common. People began approaching me not just for help with electrical issues, but to discuss their life challenges, uncertainties, and even their happiness. While I could never claim to have all the answers, I was able to offer them the love, acceptance, and understanding that I had received. My connections with the local church have changed quite a bit too. While there are still some who are skeptical of my experiences, many others have noticed the positive impact it has had on me. I've received invitations to share my story during Bible study groups and youth gatherings, not to preach or convince anyone, but to provide a different lens through which to see God's love and life's greater meaning. At home in Cumberland Creek, my mother Hattie was deeply affected by the changes I was undergoing. It brought her immense joy to see me transforming, and our conversations took on a richer quality. She often remarked, "Ori, it's like I'm finally seeing the son I always believed you could be." Yet, the most striking transformation was happening within me. Each day presented a challenge to embody the love that had touched my life. It wasn't always straightforward. Some days, the old habits of thinking and behaving tried to sneak back in, but every time I chose love over fear and understanding over judgment, I felt a stronger tie to something divine. Life began to feel like a series of moments where I could embrace love. Whether it was dealing with challenges or simply enjoying a moment of happiness, each situation became an opportunity to practice what I had learned and to become a clearer vessel for that unconditional love I craved. One of the most impactful lessons through this ongoing journey was about forgiveness. Not just forgiving those around me, but also learning to forgive myself. I came to understand that before I could express the love I had received, I had to let go of guilt about my own imperfections. This realization hit home one day when I made a serious error while working at a client's home. My mistake with an electrical installation nearly sparked a fire. I was lucky no one was injured, but the scare weighed heavily on me, filling me with guilt and shame. In that dark moment, I felt a familiar whisper in my heart, a gentle reminder of the unconditional love I had encountered before. It wasn't as intense as my near-death experience, but it brought back the essence of that love, which wasn't contingent on my perfection. I realized the real goal wasn't to be flawless. It was to embrace my imperfections with kindness and compassion. By forgiving myself, I practiced the same unconditional love that had been shown to me. This made it much easier to extend that forgiveness toward others genuinely. My journey wasn't always straightforward. It meandered through highs and lows, moments of clarity mixed with doubt. Yet throughout, that transformative experience remained like a grounding force, a constant reminder of the love that had enriched my life and that I was learning to share more each day. So day after day, in every encounter, I continued to nurture that connection. Sitting on the porch of my home in Cumberland Creek, watching the sky turn vibrant shades of orange and pink as the sun sets, I find myself reflecting on my life's remarkable journey. Since that June day in Appalachia, when I had a brush with death at the Cumberland Regional Hospital, everything changed for me. That experience wasn't just a pivotal moment. It turned my whole perspective upside down. Back then, I was just your average guy, practical and a bit skeptical, mainly wrapped up in my job and responsibilities. There was nothing wrong with that, really, but I had no idea how many connections I was missing, how love and opportunities for growth were passing me by. The moment I felt embraced by a profound, unconditional love, something I now recognize as divine, was a revelation. It's like I had been living in a world without color, and suddenly, someone turned on the vibrancy of life. Every interaction I have today is colored by that experience. I see everything, every person, every situation, through a new lens of understanding and compassion. Of course, it hasn't been a smooth ride. I still have my moments of doubt. There are days when worries threaten to overshadow that bright light I discovered. Yet, even during those tough times, the memory of my near-death experience shines like a guiding beacon, reminding me to return to love. One crucial lesson I've come to cherish is that love isn't merely a feeling, it's a daily choice. Choosing love is easy when life flows smoothly, but the real challenge arises during tough times. It's in our interactions with difficult people, and when we face our own shortcomings, that our commitment to love is truly tested. I've realized that being a vessel for this divine love doesn't require perfection. In fact, it's often through our flaws and struggles that we find the greatest opportunities to showcase and experience love. Each time I choose to forgive, rather than hold on to resentment, offer understanding instead of deciding to judge, or pick myself up after stumbling, I'm embodying that love. Life, then, becomes a continuous journey of choosing love in every moment, no matter the circumstances. Lately, I've noticed a big shift in my connection with the Cumberland Creek community. Each person I meet, be it Pastor Reynolds, Mr. Larkin, or my wonderful mother Hattie, fits into this beautiful web of relationships and purpose. Every little exchange seems to be a chance to sprinkle a bit of the love I've felt along the way. People sometimes wonder if I'm scared of death, especially after everything I've gone through. Honestly, it's lost a lot of its grip on me. That doesn't mean I'm ready to go. I cherish life and all it presents me in terms of growth and love. But I've come to understand that death isn't the finale. It serves as a doorway, an entry into an existence we can hardly begin to grasp. What's truly significant, I've learned, is how we make the most of our time here. Each day invites us to manifest a little piece of heaven on earth, reflecting the divine love I've been fortunate to experience. When I think back on who I was before that pivotal event, I feel a gentle mix of fondness and gratitude. I look back at Ori, so unaware of what he was lacking, and feel thankful for the path that has unfolded for me. As I glance forward to the future, I'm filled with anticipation and determination. More hurdles are sure to come my way, as will moments of uncertainty and fresh chances to improve myself. Yet the love I've encountered will always be my anchor, guiding me, nurturing my spirit, and reshaping me. That experience at the brink of death marked not the conclusion of a chapter, but the dawn of a new adventure, one focused on love, understanding, and a bond with something far greater than myself. As long as I breathe, I intend to walk this path, aiming to be a vessel of that divine love, one day at a time, one moment at a time. Ultimately, it's become clear to me what life truly is. It's not just about chasing riches or accolades, nor is it about achieving perfection or having every answer. It's about love. Loving deeply and without conditions, with every fiber of our being. It's about being a reflection, imperfect as it might be, of that divine love which has the power to touch and change everything around it. And as another day fades in Cumberland Creek, I find myself filled with gratitude. I'm thankful for life, appreciative of love, and cherish every moment to share just a hint of the light I witnessed on that day many years ago in June. Each day, each moment is precious. Every moment is an opportunity to embrace and share love, and that is truly invaluable. If this heartfelt spiritual story resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a thumbs up, drop a comment about your feelings, and don't forget to subscribe. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Let's spread this message far and wide together. Catch you next time.